Assembly. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Allen. I'm chair of the Joint Committee on the Arts, and it's an honor to be here with my colleagues, including Vice Chair Kansen Chu, who is the vice chair of this wonderful committee. And we want to welcome you here today as we discuss California's creative economy. I'd like to first acknowledge the members of the public who are joining us today, either here in the Capitol or the many others from around the state that are watching remotely. Thank you also to our expert witnesses who dedicated significant time to testify today. Some have traveled from quite far, and please know that that's very much appreciated, and we're very much looking forward to your remarks. Your testimony will provide additional facts, perspectives, and appreciation of our creative economy in the state of California that we and I will say that oftentimes ideas emerge from the testimony or issues that are brought before this committee that have the potential to shape public policy in support of the arts in the state. And indeed, there are a number of bills that have come out of previous hearings of the Joint Committee on the Arts. So let's talk about, first of all, the moment today, the Otis report. Today, we will be presented with the results of the 2015 Otis report on California's creative economy. It's hot off the press, debuting this afternoon in conjunction with today's hearing. For those unfamiliar with the report, it's a seminal project of the Otis College of Art and Design in Los Angeles, and it's researched by economists at the Kaiser Center for Economic Research. Now, why is this report important? Well, before the Otis report, we never had a comprehensive study of our creative sectors in California. It simply didn't exist. And although California has likely produced more iconic global brands, products, ideas, art, etc., combined more than any other place on earth, we were in a sense taking it all for granted. I'll give you an example. In the film industry, there was a sense of, no problem, we're doing just fine. Until, of course, more and more great-paying production jobs started leaving the state and wooing, high-tech fashion industry and other industries tied to the creative industries then followed. And then we, of course, started to get focused. For example, we finally passed AB 1839 the fall of 2014, which increased film tax credits from $100 million annually to $330 million annually. And according to the State Film Commission that came out with a report prior to this bill, we would lose about $1 billion a year to runaway production in 2013-14. And of course, we've now started to see the impacts of that relatively modest tax credit and how much it's brought back a lot of the critical jobs and creative economy to a whole portion of California's economy. So we're actually going to be having a hearing on the impact of the TV film tax credit as a committee, probably early 2017, and I'm excited to have the members participate in helping to pull that hearing together. This is the third time that the Otis has commissioned a statewide report. These reports have given us a great baseline as to where we've been, what's at stake, as well as projected forecasts. And with this qualitative and quantitative economic data, we can measure the impact that these sectors have, weigh the creative industry's footprint against other industries, or in many cases see how art and design career opportunities can be found within industries commonly thought to be outside of the arts. So let's just talk a little bit quickly about some of the legislative accomplishments that have happened over the past year. We should mention, of course, legislative California funding for the arts. Last year, we increased the budget for the California Arts Council from $1 million from the state's general fund to an ongoing $8 million. To place this in context, state arts funding had been at a stagnant $1 million for over 10 years, and we were at the very bottom of all states in per capita funding. $1 million to $8 million is definitely a move in the right direction. It gives our Arts Council the ability to award many more grants. These grants directly support a wide array of programs throughout the state, and we're obviously hoping to augment that and grow that funding as time goes along. We also passed AB 189, and I'm glad to see the author, Richard Bloom, here. Having to do with state-designated cultural districts. It's something we discussed at this very hearing last year, and it directs the Art Council to move forward with program development of state-designated cultural districts. Other states have already implemented these, Indiana, Massachusetts, Louisiana, Baltimore. I know that we're approaching the issue of gentrification, which is the biggest area of concern in this area, with much care, and we're looking at best practices in other states. Craig Watson, who's here, who's the director of the California Arts Council, is overseeing the genesis of this program, and he'll give us an update on the state-designated cultural districts, and I'm certainly also hopeful that Assemblymember Bloom will give us a bit of background on this issue. I also wanted to mention another bill that came out of our last hearing of this of this Joint Committee on the Arts is SB 916. California, as many of you know, is one of only 2 states in the country, along with West Virginia. We always like to be up with them. That doesn't issue teaching credentials in theater or dance. And people who want to teach those subjects are required to obtain a credential in English for theater or PE for dance, even though the training for theater dance is totally unrelated to these subjects. They're the only 2 subjects in the education code that are specifically delineated as subjects requiring standards that don't have credentials associated. And this bill recognizes the importance of the visual and performing arts to our students' education and our economy, and it will create single subject credentials for dance and theater, and we're certainly hopeful that that bill will move through. So let me introduce my new committee vice chair, Assemblymember Chu. Let me turn the microphone over to you to make any opening comments you may have, and we may hear from our other members, and then we'll of course start our agenda.
Thank you very much. Do I need? All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kansen Chu. I wanted to thank Senator Allen for inviting me to participate in this very important informational hearing. It's my pleasure to be here with you today as the chairman of the Assembly, Art, Entertainment, Sports, Tourism, and Media Technology. I would also like to extend a particular thanks to the Otis College of Arts and Design for your long-standing effort to quantify the financial contributions of the arts and your excellent work on this most recent assessment. Also have a shout out for the California Art Council. I'm happy to see Connie Martinez. I think you still rep from Santa Clara, from my district here, and for your continued good work on behalf of the peoples of California. Anyone who appreciates music, theater, or fine art, along with the graphic design and the computing skill of the video game makers, knows that art is everywhere. I wanted to thank Otis again after today's. We'll also know what that is worth in tax dollars. So thank you again, Mr. Chair, and we would like to also allow members from my committee to introduce themselves. Or Vice Chair.
Thank you. I'm Jay Obernolte, Vice Chair of the Assembly Committee on Sports, Entertainment, Tourism, and Internet Media. I'm like to thank the Chair for convening the hearing. I'm going to be looking forward with great attention to see the statistics presented today.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Hadley. I represent the South Bay of Los Angeles in the California State Assembly, and I'm also a member of the Assembly Committee on the Arts. I'm very pleased to be here. Somebody told me that attending this hearing would get us all to the front of the line for Hamilton tickets when it comes to the Pantages. So that should fill the room quickly, since this is being streamed over the internet, is my understanding. I'll just make one very quick comment. I had the privilege of attending the 85th anniversary of the Palos Verdes Arts Center just a couple of weeks ago. And it's really a great reminder as we meet here today and learn the updated facts on what's going on in the creative community and how it affects our economy, that we really are standing on the shoulders of giants, of predecessors who've been working on exposing Californians to the arts and building our creative community for decades. And obviously it is our turn, it's our opportunity to pay that forward and continue to make sure that the arts remain a vibrant part of our community as well as our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Assembly Member, the Pantages Theater where Hamilton will be shown is in Senator Allen's district and my own. So you'll have to get through us to get those tickets. And I think that is just a small, it's an important theater, but a small portion of the arts presence that we have in Southern California and particularly in the district that Senator Allen and I are fortunate enough to represent. The arts is an incredibly important thing that helps serve our community, but it also brings jobs in extraordinary numbers in Southern California. We did, when I was on the Santa Monica City Council, we studied just how many jobs in the community were somehow related to the arts, and I think that this is probably replicated through much of Southern California. It was upwards of 40%, I think, if I remember the statistic correctly. So it's good to be here talking about this subject. We really, I think, can't emphasize this as an important economic and cultural prerogative in the state of California. We are the arts community of the world, really. I think we serve arts not only to Californians statewide, but to the world.
Okay, well, thank you. I can say without equivocation that Assembly Members Bloom and Hadley have the two finest assembly districts in the state, and I appreciate them both being here. But one of the things we're going to talk about is that this is certainly not simply a Southern California phenomenon. There is extraordinary arts work happening all over the state of California, and we're going to be hearing some great stories from all over the state today, and at some of the future hearings that this committee will be convening. So let's start with our first panel, which will look at the presentation of this year's findings and this wonderful economic study. So we're bringing to the dais Bruce Ferguson, who's president of Otis College of Art and Design. You can come up and we'll seat everybody here at the table. We'll also be hearing from Kimberly Ritter Martinez, who's the economist from the Kaiser Center and has done this work for the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation. And then, of course, Craig Watson, who's the director of the California Arts Council. And so this is a fantastic group. They've got, in this true spirit of arts and creativity, they've got exciting PowerPoints, videos, interactive design, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing from the three of them. Right. So we'll start with you, President Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Senator Allen, for that generous introduction. I could actually help you get tickets in New York, but not here, if you need them. Good afternoon. I'm Bruce W. Ferguson, president of Otis College of Art and Design. I'm very grateful to Chairman Allen, to Vice Chair Kansan Chu, and to the esteemed members of the Joint Committee on the Arts for today's opportunity to speak to you. Since 2007, Otis College of Art and Design has commissioned the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation to develop an annual report on the creative economy. The result, which is called the Otis Report on the Creative Economy of the Los Angeles region originally, has been a leading advocacy tool for the arts, design, and entertainment sectors. It has inspired a convergence of cross-sector leaders committed to working together to bolster the creative economy and stimulated similar efforts and conversations in cities across the country, including one in our own backyard, Culver City, which uses the Otis report as a model and has gone down to a granular level with regard to that, and even as far away as Kenya, surprisingly enough. In 2013, thank you. With the generous support of the California Arts Council, the economic analysis included in the Otis report was expanded to the entire state of California. This initial effort was an important first step in documenting the size, role, and economic impact of the creative economy across California. And the 2015 Otis report on the creative economy is the third annual study and again provides powerful and persuasive evidence of the enormous fiscal impact of the creative industries in California. The report focuses on 11 creative sectors, mostly related to art design, entertainment, and art education. We measure the direct, indirect, and induced economic impact of these sectors, something that Kimberly will flesh out in a few minutes, in terms of jobs, payroll, economic output, as well as state and local taxes generated as a result of these activities. The research is comprehensive, covering for-profit firms, philanthropic and nonprofit organizations, educational entities such as our own, and independent contractors, because many who work in the creative industries are self-employed freelancers. The statewide data demonstrates the compelling power of our creative economy. Across California, with a total of 1.6 million workers, the creative sectors accounted for 11.9% of all wage and salary employment and contributed 9.4% of California's gross state product in 2014. Now, what does this mean? This means, on average, the creative economy in California accounted for 1 in 8 payroll jobs and $1 out of every $12 generated in the state. The creative economy is a powerful and persuasive across the state, and the Otis report puts real numbers to this creativity. So what is the economic impact of creativity? Here are a few highlights, which then will be fleshed out, as I say, in the next reports about California's creative economy. The creative industry output totaled $374.5 billion, direct, indirect, and induced. The creative industry generated 1.6 million jobs, direct, indirect, and induced, and those wage and salary workers earned $123.6 billion in total labor income. Property taxes, state and local personal income taxes, and sales taxes generated directly and indirectly by the creative industries were $15.5 billion across all California. The largest direct job counts in California's creative sector were entertainment, 166,300, publishing and printing, 144,400, and fashion, 120,800. So together, these three industries accounted for nearly 60% of direct creative industry employment in California. Creative occupations often require high levels of education or skills training. Of the 80 creative occupations identified for this report, 38 required a bachelor's degree or higher. So that's essentially one half. Regional snapshots. New to this year's report and mentioned by Senator Allen are regional snapshots, each detailing the creative economies of 8 regions in California in total. Inspired by the map used by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GoBiz, the regions are defined as follows: Bay Area, Capital Region, Central Coast, Central Valley, Inland Empire, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Imperial Valley, and upstate California. Each snapshot provides data on creative industry employment and trends, as well as job count comparisons between creative industries and non-creative industries, such as construction, financial activities, or state and local government. At the end of each snapshot are listings for the region's arts councils, local experts in that area's arts, cultural, and creative industry assets. Creative California. Also new to this year's report is a comparison of the number of wage and salary workers in the creative industries in California and the rest of the nation. With 722,600 jobs, California, you'll be happy to know, far surpasses New York State, which has 464,000 jobs, followed by Texas with 225,000 jobs. Furthermore, the report provides information on location quotients, what are called LQs, which are used to quantify the concentration of a particular industry cluster, occupation, or demographic group in a region compared to the nation. It reveals what makes a region unique and gives an indication of where a region has a competitive advantage. In California, 7 of the 10 occupations with the highest LQ, that is location quotients, are creative, meaning that the state has a higher concentration of those occupations than the nation as a whole. These include actors, artists, agents, fabric and apparel, pattern makers, film and video editors, makeup artists, media and communications workers, and so on. So the state of creativity. In a post-industrial society, an information society like we live in today, activities based on creativity are an essential feature of a flourishing economy. And the data in the Otis report leaves no doubt that creativity is one of California's foremost economic assets. When one sees the data, a persuasive case for the beneficial and essential role that creative enterprises play in the lives of Californians becomes clear. It is my hope that cities and counties throughout California can leverage the Otis report to encourage further investments in the arts education, economic development, and cultural planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your testimony. We'll next hear from Kimberly Ritter-Martinez.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Ritter, and I'm an economist with the LAEDC. Thank you. The organization that produced the report for Otis College of Art and Design. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm going to be using my time with you to highlight some of the results from the Otis report. My remarks will closely align with Bruce's, although I'll be providing a little bit more detail. Now, to begin, I think it is important that we understand that here in California, we have recognized that innovation is what powers long-run economic growth and is key to increasing the standards of living for California's residents and their incomes. Now, we lead the nation in the number of patents issued per 100,000 people, nearly 106 compared to 36 for the rest of the nation. We also are the leading state for total R&D spending, third on a per capita basis. And last year, California received more venture capital funding than all other states combined, about 58% of the total. So for California to hold on to its competitive edge, it is absolutely essential we continue to invest in our innovation economy, in basic and applied research, and developing our human capital. And at the heart of innovation lies creativity. Creativity is the foundation for invention, and it is the lifeblood of a growing and prosperous economy. All right. So creativity is one of California's foremost economic assets and has undeniably played an important role in California's economic success story. So what is the creative economy? Well, we've identified three major components. First, the creative economy is composed of the businesses and individuals involved in producing cultural, artistic, and design goods and services. It consists of creative professionals and the enterprises that take original ideas and transform them into beautiful and useful goods. This means the creative economy, as we define it, goes beyond what we typically think of as the arts. Here we're talking about all kinds of design, as well, in many cases, as manufacturing and distribution activities. Now, the creative economy also includes organizations that provide a venue for artists to share their work with the public, such as museums, art galleries, and theaters. And then finally, the creative economy includes the support system that teaches, nurtures, and sustains creative activity, such as arts programs in K through 12 schools, post-secondary arts institutions to develop talent, and philanthropic foundations and other nonprofit organizations that provide financial resources, incentives, and services to the arts. Now, here you have a list of the industries that we define as making up the creative economy. This list will vary from place to place, from researcher to researcher, but there is a developing or growing body of research, both here in the United States and globally, that is coalescing around this group of industries. And I want to emphasize again that while the arts play a large and important role in the creative economy, we're actually casting a much wider net by including wholesale, retail, and manufacturing activities in addition to design work. So Bruce touched on this, but in 2014, California had almost 723,000 wage and salary workers in the creative industries, the largest number of any state. New York came in second with almost 465,000, followed by Texas with about 250,000. Now, creative employment as a share of total employment was a bit higher in New York, 6.2% versus 5.4% in California. So although California has the largest number of creative industry jobs, it is a little bit more concentrated in New York.
Are New York and California the two highest percentage-wise?
Yes.
Okay.
So here we're looking at the distribution of creative industry jobs in California. The largest employment counts, as you can see by looking at the pie chart, were in entertainment, 166,000, publishing and printing, 144, and then fashion, nearly 121,000 jobs. So together, these three industries accounted for 60% of total creative industry employment in California. Now, entertainment and fashion jobs are concentrated primarily in the Los Angeles region, while the share of publishing and printing jobs was much higher in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, because that particular industry group includes internet publishing. You'll also find digital media slightly higher in the Bay Area. Now, this chart shows job growth in the creative industries between 2009 and 2014. And again, you can see the large employment shares that go to fashion, publishing and printing, and entertainment. Now, between 2009 and 2011, which you're picking up the effects of the recession in the early stages of the recovery, we saw employment decline by about 3%. But between 2011 and 2014, employment began to bounce back, and we saw an increase of 9.3% during that period. Now, employment in California's creative industries peaked in this cycle in 2007 at 767,000 jobs, so we've not recovered all of the jobs lost during the recession, and that's mainly because of the large manufacturing component that you find in toys, apparel, and furniture. Now, the strongest job growth is occurring in the service-providing segments of the creative economy, primarily design work and wholesaling, which actually mirrors wider trends that are going on in the rest of the national and state economy in regards to manufacturing versus service sector job growth. This shows direct labor income. So total direct labor income in the creative industries amounted to over $76 billion in 2014. The largest shares went to publishing and printing, entertainment, and digital media in this case. Now, to provide context, total private sector labor income in California in 2014 was about $790 billion. So the creative sector equated to about 9.6% of that total. Now, in addition to wage and salary jobs, which is what we've been discussing so far, there were 326,000 self-employed individuals in the creative industries, and this is a 2013 number, different data set, different timing. This comes from the IRS. Now, it's important to note that many of these individuals that are self-employed may also work on the payroll of an employer, so we need to avoid the temptation to add these 326,000 to those wage and salary jobs. They're simply not additive. You'd end up double counting in many cases. So most employment or most self-employment is concentrated in the visual and performing arts, over 47%, and then the communication arts, 26%, and those would be your graphic designers, photographers, and advertising professionals. Now, in the visual and performing arts, self-employment is actually more common than being on somebody's payroll. And unlike wage and salary jobs, after dipping briefly during the recession, creative self-employment has achieved new record highs every year since 2011. Now, up until this point, we have been talking about creative industry employment. And when we talk about industry employment, we're covering everybody from the receptionist on up to the CEO, whether or not a person is doing a creative job. And another way to look at the creative economy is to look at what people are actually doing. Okay, that is creative occupations. Now, people in creative occupations can be found throughout the economy, not just in the defined set of creative industries. For example, a graphic designer might be working for the Disney company or a media firm, but they could also be employed in a large law firm creating graphics to help a jury understand a complicated case. Now, in 2014, there were nearly 435,000 people in California working in a creative occupation, up by almost 5% over the previous year. Now, art, design, entertainment, and media was the largest occupational group, with a large share of those jobs concentrated in Los Angeles, while many of the computer and mathematical jobs, again, because these are tech-related, were found in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. Now, because creativity is a highly valued and recognized professional attribute, many of these occupations earn high wages. This is a selection of the creative occupations and their median annual salaries. These can be full or part-time positions. Now, I didn't choose these particular occupations because they all happen to pay a wage that's higher than the median average across all occupations in California. I actually added that as an afterthought, but 80 of the creative occupations we analyzed in this report, only 18 had a median wage less than the median across all industries. And then this chart demonstrates why we see relatively high wages in creative occupations. Almost half require a BA degree or higher, and then another 9% require at least an AA or some college. Now, it's also interesting to note that last year, the Los Angeles County Arts Commission analyzed the same data set along with us and found that in Los Angeles County, at least half of the creative sector jobs that did not require a BA or higher still paid a higher annual median wage greater than across all the occupations in Los Angeles County. So with this chart, we're looking at what we call location quotients. And a location quotient is a way to measure the concentration of an occupation in California relative to the rest of the United States. Now, an LQ of 1 means the concentration is about the same here in California as elsewhere in the United States. Less than 1 means a smaller concentration. More than 1 means that occupation is more highly concentrated in California. High location quotients for a given occupation suggest that there's a competitive advantage to working in that occupation in California relative to the rest of the nation. So there's something that's causing those people to cluster here in California.
Excuse me, if I can ask a question on that. Are these calculated on a state level, these quotients?
Yes, we actually obtain them from the BLS and their occupational data set. They calculate them. We also have them available at the county level, which in the LA regional report we have listed.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay. So this chart shows the 10 highest location quotients for occupations in California. You'll note that 7 of them are creative occupations. And when you get down to looking at the Los Angeles, Orange County area, all 10 occupations with the highest LQs are creative, and they're very, very high. So in LA, they range from a 6.7 for producers and directors on up to a 12 for film and video editors. And those are extremely high ratios. All right, so far we've discussed the direct effects of the creative industries in terms of jobs and labor income, but that's not the whole story, as Bruce touched on. We also performed a contribution analysis in the report to measure how creative industry activity ripples throughout the rest of the economy, and the results were very substantial. All right, so starting with jobs, take a look at those numbers. We already mentioned about 723,000 direct jobs. Indirect and induced jobs were another 860,000 for a total employment effect of 1.6 million. Labor income direct was 76.1 billion. Indirect and induced added another 47, and then total labor income 123.5 billion. In terms of output, creative industry output was nearly 375 billion in 2014. The contribution to California's gross product through the value-added component of that was 217 billion, and that equated to 9.4% of California's $2.3 trillion economy. In addition, the creative industries generated through direct, induced, and indirect state and local taxes of $15.5 billion. So we're talking about pretty big numbers here. Now, to clarify what we mean by direct, indirect, and induced, when we're talking about this, what we mean is that, say there's a creative firm like an architectural firm. People that are employed for them, they are the direct workers in the creative economy. That firm will buy goods and services from vendors. That in turn supports jobs with those vendors. Those are your indirect jobs. When the creative industry, the architectural firm's workers get paid, they go out and spend their money at the grocery store, dry cleaners, going to the theater, whatnot. Those are the induced jobs that are created. So that's how we go from 722,000 jobs to 1.6 million. So we're saying that those 722,000 jobs support this additional economic activity in California. And those spread out from the creative industries to professional and business services, retail trade, accommodations, food services, and you can see on down the line there. So it's spread out throughout the economy. So to conclude, the creative industries in California, they make a significant contribution to economic growth and employment by fostering innovation and spillover effects that enhance other industries. The creative industries also help strengthen the state economy by attracting investment, tourism, and consumer spending, and by generating tax revenues. Now, as the U.S. continues to evolve from an industrial to a post-industrial society, activities rooted in creativity and culture are becoming increasingly essential to economic growth. And as Bruce also mentioned, new to this year's report is a regional analysis of California's creative economy that shows that these activities are not just limited to our large metropolitan areas, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, but in fact, creativity is spread out all over California. So given the large presence of the creative industries in California, it's important that we ask how we can nurture, support, and grow the creative economy. So with that, I'll just say thank you.
Fantastic, really great. Great data. And well presented, too. Thank you to both of you. All right, well, next hear from Craig Watson. And Craig, of course, is the director of our Arts Council, and love to hear your thoughts.